What about today? What about you and me? What about writers today? What about singers? What about compositions today? What about poets today? We can find healing in the present. We can find the language in the present. We can find the raga in the present. We can find the dance in the present. So I think that interlocking, interconnection between the past and the present is where we can find going forward.
Good evening, Mr. Krishna. Thank you for agreeing to speak to Deccan Herald.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here. So congratulations on your new book. It comes exactly 1 year after Sebastian and Sons, which is about the Mridangam makers. So how did this book come about?
So I have been writing columns in many publications, and Penguin suggested that we kind of bring it together, collate it and curate it in a manner that tells a story of the person's individual, which is me, thought process, perceptions, changes, new nuances that have come into my own thought process. Sometimes even disagreeing with the past that of myself.
Right. Yes.
So we brought this together. We chose about 50 odd pieces. So it was a interesting journey for me to go back and bring it together in something that makes sense in a way.
Why do you call it The Spirit of Inquiry? What prompted this title?
Well, I think the word enquiry has been with me for a long time, both enquiry and inquiry, both those words. Because I think one of the things that I hope to do through this is when you say spirit of inquiry, sometimes you think of it as being something that is very internal, very personal in that sense, right? I think what this book tries to do is say that the spirit of inquiry has to be this conversation between the outer and the inner. Whether it is direct politics, whether it is art, whether it is thinking of people, of memory, it cannot be something that is an isolated thing that you're doing for yourself or in yourself after intellectualizing it without a connection with the outer, with society.
Yes, one thing weaves into another. In your writing, music goes into politics, and politics goes into society, and there is sociology and there is political observation. So one of the questions that you ask yourself in the course of your book, in the course of one of your essays, is how to define classicism, because you have been redefining many things. You have been collaborating with the musicians, with the kind of musicians that classical musicians had never interacted with. For example, you've done a Jugalbandi with a Nadaswaram player, with a woman Nadaswaram player. It's a wonderful recording of Jagadodharana. To you, what does classicism mean, and how do you think you talk about how it needs to be rid of its cobwebs? How would you define classicism?
I think it's a hoax word. I don't think that word actually has aesthetic meaning. See, it is classical, non-classical, folk. Now, these are all categorizations, right? And human beings love categories. We love to categorize everything, and that's how we seem to understand the world. And maybe that is one of our fundamental problems, that we don't find a way of understanding ourselves or the world without categorizing it as something. But beyond the philosophical struggle, what does it mean first when we say something is classical? I think that's a question we should ask ourselves aesthetically. In one of the essays, which is actually a transcript of a talk that I gave, I actually break down every one of those aspects that we think make something classical, from training to intellectualism, to ideas of sophistication, nuance, and all these words, and ancestry and antiquity. If you look at it, there is nothing aesthetic about it. It's ultimately a power group that decides what's classical and what is not classical. Depending on which is the power group, you tag it. A very interesting part is also it influences the way you hear, the way you see. So the classical sound becomes something you identify with or you aspire to. It also becomes aspirational. So it's a very complex web. And I don't think the word classical really has any aesthetic potency at all. I'm very clear about it now. Classicism within the classical is also another thing, So what I would say is that every art form within its own being, which is means its own aesthetic body, its own intention, its own cultural sphere, within itself has ideas of rigor, ideas of sophistication, nuance within each of those forms. Now, to compare X with Y is fundamentally flawed because never is X and Y equal in societal placement. So we are actually comparing something that is unequal, right? The moment you indulge in that, your senses are also indulging in the hierarchical perception. So if you come from a classical world, I come with a hierarchical sonic perception, visual perception, cultural perception, everything, caste perception, and then I'm looking at everything with this lens. I think the point is, can we give up that lens and enter another medium by itself? Then we find that the word classical, folk are all very, 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 they need to be disturbed, in my opinion. I try my best not to use the word classical unless I have to explain something to somebody. Otherwise, I don't want to use the word. Just call the art form by its name, period.
Yeah, there's a very interesting passage in your book where you talk about our nostalgia for film songs and what we consider our classic tunes. So you actually make the point that this is not just nostalgia, or the best songs from our youth when we felt very rebellious or romantic, but these are actually constructs, are social constructs, and they are connected with the way we actually classify music or songs into classic and non-classic. For example, you say Kolaveri can never be a classic.
Exactly. So it's intriguing, right? Kolaveri will be a sociological object to write a piece on. But Kolaveri in public imagination it doesn't become a classic like a melody within a quote. We say many people will say, the melodies of those days. What do we mean by that? And if you dig deeper, you find that this notion of what is classic in that word, or what remains in that word, or what is something that, shall we say, transcends generations, you find by that more or less we are again going towards what sounds like, close to, has semblance to the worlds of the classicals. But I think that that's also changing. And why is that changing? Let's think about that. I think that the people who are making films today, at least I speak for Tamil cinema very clearly, at least. I think Hindi cinema has a long way to go. If you look at Tamil cinema, you do find that the people today who are making Tamil cinema are coming from a larger spectrum of society. There's a larger assertion of Dalit identity. Now, that also affects the sound of the cinema, the music of the cinema. Now, the moment that starts happening, then I think this notion of what is precious in the past that we have lost today or we need to continue will also start turning and twisting. That's very important.
Right. You talk about this extensively in your book, and in the last section, which you have titled A Savage Inequality, you talk about caste and discrimination, and then you ask a question. How do you separate the art from the artist? How do you look at art created by someone who's been named in a campaign like Me Too?
How does one deal with this as a society? When you have these accusations of sexual harassment, some, in the larger spectrum, or even different kinds of violence. Wagner reminds everybody of what happened to the Jews, or either case. What do we do? And I think that there are two positions that people take. There's one that says, that person's art has to be completely, shall be dumped in the dustbin. That's it, just forget it. Wipe that person off the scene. The other says that the art and the artist are separate beings. I find both problematic. I think both need to be seen a little carefully. To me, the reality is in keeping both alive. The fact is, okay, X artist accused of sexual harassment or any other violent act has also created what we could call exquisite art. Okay, I think we should dirty that exquisite art with the personality that that person is.
Right.
Okay. So I think in that in between, there is a reality check for us as a society that we can't brush aside anything.
Yeah, a very interesting part in your book is this essay on Tyagaraja, and what are the 3 questions you might ask Tyagaraja if you met him today?
Wow. I mean, in all his body of work, Tyagaraja, and to his, I must say there are about 5 or 6 compositions that are troublesome in terms of their lyrical content, because there is caste there, and there is gender discrimination, caste and gender discrimination, which are quite evident in those compositions. I mean, having said that, I don't expect Tyagaraja to have the modern progressive outlook like we expect today. Having said that, I think the problem is this: is what we have done with Tyagaraja is fundamentally the problem. So you have positioned Tyagaraja as a semi-god, as a saint, and the community of Carnatic musicians take whatever he says as gospel. Therefore, there could not be another human being equal to Tyagaraja. Now, the moment you do that, then what everything he says has to be seen carefully. That's my point. Secondly, let's not forget that we are singing it today. We are not singing it in 1822. We are singing in 2021. So the composition, every time a song is sung, it comes alive in that moment. It doesn't it? In that space, in that society, in that community. It's talking to larger people. So we have to be reflective of our context when we sing his compositions. We can't say, what can we do? He said this so long ago. I mean, if you're willing to celebrate some of the lyrics of his, even in today's context, and do pravachanas about how Tyagaraja has said so many wonderful things, then you must be also honest and willing to be critical of some things that he has said. It's just asking for that intellectual and artistic honesty. If I met him today, my question to him will be, in your search, seeking of Rama, why didn't you see the reality beyond your circle? Because if you found Rama, shouldn't you have seen it? And second is, what was this process of creating new ragas? Because I have some reservations about it.
You've also spoken about Lingayatism in the book. There's an essay on Lingayatism and the demand for religion separate from Hinduism. And Basava again comes from a totally different perspective. Like if a Tyagaraja talks about how scholarship is important, Moksha Mugalada, Sangeeta Gnana Vihin. I mean, one who has no knowledge of music has no chance of attaining moksha. And Basava comes from a totally different perspective, and he says, Anu Volidante Aduve, I sing as I please because I mean no disrespect to you. There are these two perspectives to music, these two perspectives to artistic expression. What are your perspectives on what is happening in India today, what is happening in Israel? You have been very vocal about some of these problems.
There are two things here, right? One is we respond to the present situation, and we all need to respond in our own ways, because the present situation is a polarizing situation. We have an environment where hatred is becoming central, right? But so we need to respond to that. We need to keep it at check. At the same time, we also have to reflect on why we are here. I have a problem if we don't do this. This has not happened yesterday and day before. This has been brewing for a long, long time. I mean, Babri Masjid demolition was one of the biggest moments of it. But even before that, we have to see that there has not really been healing and conversation among the multiple kinds of people in this country for a long, long time. I think that there is a failure of modernity in India. This is what I feel. There's no point in declaring yourself a democratic republic, putting out a constitution, all this, unless the sensibility of what it means to be democratic. What does it mean to have conversations? What does it mean to have differences? What does it, use the word secular? What does it mean? We are a society of fiefdoms. We are a society of clubs. We are a society of discriminating people. Depending on where you are, your access is determined, your friends are determined, your cluster is determined. So I think there is a lot of work to be done for us. And we have work for at least another 2 decades if you want to really undo what has happened now, and also not create a cycle. We can't forget about this and say, okay, fine, now let's go back to how we were. How we were was wrong. And that's why we are here where we are today.
Yeah. So who are the poets who might actually help us heal?
I will say healing is a word that's important, but the healing must also be a contested healing. Healing cannot be just about finding soothing things, but also finding things that are contesting, that are challenging each other. I want Basava to challenge Tyagaraja. I want Murugan to challenge Dikshita. So I think the answer is both in the past and in the present. That's very important. We also have this tendency to go back again to the past to even talk about healing. I have a problem with that. What about today? What about you and me? What about writers today? What about singers? What about compositions today? What about poets today? We can find healing in the present. We can find the language in the present. We can find the raga in the present. We can find the dance in the present. So I think that interlocking, interconnection between the past and the present is where we can find going forward.
I have a last question, and this is about technology. What do you think of the new sounds across India that we hear in film music? Do you see a diversity, or do you see a sameness? How has this soundscape changed?
In Hindi film industry, honestly, I don't see a huge change in its sound. I do not see it. I mean, I may have missed something, and if I've missed it, I'll stand corrected. But I do not see it. I do not see a sociological, because I think sound change will happen only if there's a sociological change. Otherwise, the sameness will continue. To a large extent, you find history tells you that. So I don't see a huge mix of people from different cultures really pushing forward in Hindi cinema as yet. It is happening in Marathi cinema. It's happened in Marathi cinema for some time now. It's happening in Tamil cinema. So these two film industries, to me, you can hear it in the sound. In Tamil industry, you definitely can hear it in the sound. And it's refreshing. Refreshing because the stories being told are changing. The perception, the perspective of the stories are changing. Who is telling the story? Who is the narrator? How do they see a certain situation, a context, the emotion? The moment that the angle of the camera changes, then the sound has to change. So I think a lot of what may happen with the sound in film industry depends on who is telling what story. The moment that starts shifting, the sound will have to shift.
Thank you for your wonderful interview. More power to you, and congratulations again on your new book.
Thank you very much. Such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.